Let's have a look at some more Bento layouts, and the one I'm going to show you, you can see on screen right now. I'm trying to be a little bit inventive. Now, this design is going to get adapted in a later video coming out this week, but the one you're watching today is just how do we build this layout with Flexbox container using Elementor and WordPress. It's going to be a pretty simple layout with two parent containers, and the top parent container will be split into child containers. And the second parent container will be a load more child. Now, I don't have to have so many child containers. You can get away with just having elements. So I could add in a text editor or even a header and just add in tons of padding. But in case I ever wanted to modify that going forwards by adding in extra icons or content within there, it works better to use child containers. So from the get-go, I'm going to go over and I'm going to pick a Flexbox container with two child containers like that. Let's just go and drop that in. I'm then going to go over to my parent container and I'm going to zero out all the margin and padding. And I'm going to do that for the child containers as well. Now, the only reason I like to do that is because I like to have control over how things are going to sit. And then I will go back in and add in margin and padding. Sometimes I wish that Elementor would just zero everything out for us as well. But I do totally understand that for some people, having that little bit of that outline helps them to visualize and understand where things sit. I'm going to go back over to my parent container and I'm going to go to my layer and ensure that is on 1140. Then I'm going to go to my advanced tab and I'm going to say, give me some padding of 20 on the left and right, just so it pushes everything in a little bit. I'm on the top. I'm going to go with 25 from the top and then I'm going to go with 0 from the bottom. Mainly because I am going to add in another parent container below, and that's where I will go and add in some extra padding on the top of that, which will be 25 as well. But for now, I'm just going to go with 25 on the top and 20 on the left and right. I'm going to go back to my layout tab, and I'm now going to set my gap between my two child containers in there to be 25. Normally, I go for 20. But with this particular style I'm going for, the 25, that extra 5 pixel, actually made a bit of a difference in how it looks, and I think you'll agree with me when we're done. I'm now going to set my background color. Make sure you're clicked on the parent container, go over to your style and pick a color. I actually have one on here called Apple BG, which is F5, F5, F7 in case you ever want to use that. So on a lot of Apple sites, that's the kind of silvery gray they go for. I'm going to go to my second child container and I'm going to set a background image. Now, I've gone and got some images from Pexels and I've gone and converted loads of them to be about 600 by 600 pixels in size. And then I've gone and used bulk-resizephotos.com to compress them into a WebP. Let's go and pick our image. I'm going to go for this one here. Now, at the moment, you're not going to see it properly because we haven't set the height. But what I will do is just go and set this to be a cover, set to be no repeat, top center like that. Don't worry about the fact that we can't see the person of interest, okay? It will all become clear. Into our first child container, I'm now going to drop extra child containers because this is going to contain additional items. And if I was to just start dropping them into the child container, I'm slightly limiting myself as to how I might want to present it or modify it later on. And when you watch the later videos that will be coming out this week, when I start to add in a bit of animation or interaction, those containers are going to be key. So inside of here, we're going to drop in an extra child container. I'm just going to zero out the margin and padding of the sub-child container. I've just modified the titles over here so it's easier to understand. I'm going to make the sub-child container have a white background like that. Then go to the border tab and I'm going to give this a border radius of 15. I'm also going to set the minimum height of the sub-child container to be 25 VH. Now, what I'm going to do is duplicate this. So we now have two sub-child containers within the first one. Don't worry about the fact that we don't have a gap below here. We're going to sort that out later on. But by me now making child 1 have two sub-childs, and now they've got like a fixed height in there or a minimum height, child number 2 that contains the background image is now much more visible. Let's just go and modify that a little bit. We're going to go over to the border for the child number 2 container, and I hope you can see on the navigator I'm over here now. We're going to go down to border and I'm going to say give me 15 there as well. If we now preview that, accepting the fact that we don't have anything below here because we're going to address that later on, can you see now we have that nice little curved borders going around all of our containers. Let's just make sure things are spaced out correctly. So in child number 1, we're going to go to our layout and I'm going to ensure that the row gap is set to 25. It was already defaulting to 20, but I want to ensure that is now exactly how I want it to be. Now let's go and add in some content. So I'm going to go to the second subchild container. I'm going to give this a background color. I'm going to drop a heading into there. We're going to change the wording, call it Zoe, because that might be the name of the person or the company. I've modified the style of this to be a 118. Now, obviously you would use REM or you would use a clamp calculation as well. For the speed of the tutorial, I'm just going to stick in 118 for now. And it's a weight of 600 with letter spacing of 0.5. I'm now going to go to the container that contains that heading, go to the layout, and I'm going to say center, center like that. That's how easy it is with Flexbox container. Into the first child container, I am going to drop in another heading. Change the content, and I've made it a 40 pixel in size with a 400 weight. Remember, you would normally use REM or a clamp calculation. When we go to the subchild container that contains this, I'm just going to pop this in the center. I will add in a bit of padding because it's way too much over to the left. So we go to the advanced tab, go to our padding, giving it 50 all the way around, but I'm going to increase it on the right hand side just so it wraps the text a bit more better in terms of reading it. On second thoughts, I'm going to go back over to my child container here. I'm now going to get rid of the center there. I'm going to go to the advanced tab and I'm now just going to have 50 on the left. And I think having the text there left the line just looks better. Let's just jump over to how this would look in a mobile. And because you're working with containers, everything will just stack. I mean, it's not a good idea to have 2 child containers side by side unless the content inside is quite minuscule or maybe icons, and then you could get away with it. But here, you would just adjust your paddings and your font sizes. I'm going to set a height for this image. That's how it looks on the mobile. That's how it looks on the desktop. So far, so good. Now let's go and do the second parent container. This is going to have 3 child containers, and inside of there will be more subchild. And I'm just going to go for a similar layout of what I have above. I could, if I want, just reuse what I got, but I want to make sure you understand how we build these. So we're just going to go through the same things again. I'm going to zero out my parent container, go to my child, zero them out as well, go back to my parent container, set my row and my gaps to be 25. I mean, even though I'm just adding in child container columns here at the moment, but you might as well do it for the column and the row. Go for 20 padding on the left and right and 25 on the top and bottom. Why have I done the bottom? I didn't do it on that one. Well, that's because now I do want to have an end point for when it basically ends. Again, we're going to go with this Apple BG color. I'm actually going to get rid of that second child container because it's easier for me to do everything in one and then I can add it in. I'm going to go to the first one, go to the layout, make sure it is set to full width. Always ensure your child containers are full width inside. The same with your subchilds, because then you can control the percentage. So I'm now going to change this to be 33.3%. And then into here, I'm going to add in subchild containers, a bit like what we did above, but this time it's now going into this container. So we're going to go add in a child. Let's just zero out the margin and padding. We add in a background color that is white. We go to the border and I'm going to set this to be 15. And then I duplicate it. Again, I'm going to set the child to be, or the subchild to be 25. And I'm just going to copy that and paste the style over there. So again, we have 2 25s. Now, when you're viewing this on a full screen, you will notice though that I have to scroll down to see the bottom of this container. That shouldn't be like that because it's 25, 25, 25, 25 VH. That's 100. Why am I scrolling down? Well, it's because we got these gaps here, 25 pixel, 25 pixel, 25. I'm going to go and adjust these, and I think the 25 is a bit big, so I'm going to make them all be 22. We'll do the same for this container, 22. Go over to the subchild, 22. You will have to tinker a little bit, okay? And you can use features like grow and shrink as well, but I'm just going to be a little bit specific. And there we go. That works okay now. Yes, you got to scroll a little bit if you want to get rid of the gap there and just there, but that works okay. And the text still looks fine as well. You've reduced the height, but it's okay. Now this image over here, I think we need to make an adjustment, okay? So I'm going to go over to my media library. I've got my image. I'm going to go to the edit image setting. I'm going to go to crop and I'm going to take this down to be something like that. I'm going to hit apply crop and I'm going to hit save edit. And when I refresh the page, that is looking so much better. Now, there is something I'm going to show you over here that I think is a really neat trick. In here, we're going to drop in like an overlay text, and it's going to overlay a video that keeps looping. Now, when you're adding in videos, it's always a good idea not to always link over to YouTube or another third party, because there might be a split-second delay. One of the tricks, if you do ever have a split-second delay before the YouTube video plays or whatever, is to ensure that the image you add in here, now let me just show you what I mean. If I was to go in and pick video, you have a background fallback. You take your video at 0000 right at the start, and you take a screenshot of that. You convert it to WebP and you set that as your background fallback. So if the image or the video does not play, that image is there. When the video does play, it literally just transitions from image to video. So don't just take like a bit of the video, take the full screen without any controls at 000. Neat trick you want to try out. But I'm doing something a step further. If I go to my media library, I have added in a video that is only 6 seconds long, and it is 134 kilobytes. This video, I created, got the video from Pexels, put it into Canva, and I've made sure the size of the canvas was, if I recall, I think it's about 550 by 200 something pixels in height and width and height. And I only made it 6 seconds. So what it does is it plays for 3 seconds and then it reverses again. So it goes backwards. And the idea I've done that is that it basically means that you have a continuous loop and you won't see the jump from when it goes like that. You know, sometimes you play a video and then it starts again and you see a jump. This is just going to go backwards and forwards. I've gone for 6 seconds. And by doing it as a small canvas, it's only 134 kilobytes. If that was a 1920, it would have been about 2.5 megabytes in size. So when you think about condensing videos, because it's not a full screen video, right? You're not going to view it in full screen. It's just going to play and it's going to add a bit of movement, but a very subtle bit. What I'm going to do is just copy that because I'm not using YouTube. It's just I've loaded it in. It's only 134 kilobytes. You know, and by the way, when you look at loads of these images, they're 43 kilobytes. These are quite small as well, which is why you want to be using WebP images, right? But that video is probably smaller than some of the images that some of you are loading on. In fact, some of the fonts, if you don't custom load and you're using TTF, that's probably smaller than some of the fonts you got. Anyway, we've got that URL. Go back over to our page. And over here for this container, we are going to drop in a video. So I pop in my URL and look, you can see the video is already starting to play there. We're going to say play on mobile, and that's about it. Because I'm not going to YouTube, and that's just going to keep playing. It won't stop. And what happens is it goes forward, it goes back, and goes forward. And I think that's a neat little trick. Now, onto here, we're going to drop in some text, but I'm going to do a little bit of homework first. So we're going to go to the layout for the container, and I'm going to say whatever I add goes right to the bottom. Okay, it goes right to the bottom. Let's now drop in a header. So there's my text and it's just overlapping on the image, but you can't really read it very well. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the Advanced tab, and this is on the text, by the way. I mean, this is a heading. You should have used a text editor if you want as well. I'm just doing heading. You go to the background, okay, for the Advanced tab, or it could be on the Style tab, depending on what widget you're using. And we're on the heading, right? We're not on the container. I'm going to give this a background color. We're going to go for our standard greeny color. I'm going to make it a bit more transparent. I'm then going to go to the layout and give it a bit of padding. 10 from the top, 10 on the right, 10 from the bottom, and I think 10 on the left. I think that works well. Then I'm going to go to my border, because if I show you this, can you see now we've lost that curve? We now have a hard border. Well, I know what my sizes are. So on the heading, you go to your border radius, and if you're not familiar with top, right, bottom, left, that's your top. Well, that is your right, that is your bottom, that is your left. So bottom and left, let's go and add in 15 and 15. And we now view that. I now get my curved overlay over the video, right? You didn't have to drop in another container and another container and another container to get this. So we've got this looping video, and can you see it just loops? It just plays, goes back, reverses, and it just kind of like almost feels like it's panning a bit as this person is writing. I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty cool. Let's go and copy this text and paste it into here. Let's ensure that this container is set to be centered. So I've added in a bit of text. I've made sure the pixel size is the same as what we have over here, and it's a 400. I've just realized though that over here, that does need to have some further padding because it's not kind of in line with what we got here. So let me just make that equal. At the moment, we're kind of giving you quite a bit of content. I'm trying to reinforce what we've said over here. And I've made the fonts be 22 for the video overlay and the text is. So at the moment, you can see what's happening and it looks fine. And we have that nice little shade or contrast with the background. You may feel you want to make the background a whole lot more darker. Go ahead. I mean, look, let me just show you what would this look if we were to go with, say, a dark black. And it stands out so much more. But what you got to look for is what kind of connects with the images. So be careful of going for colors that kind of are too contrast strong, or they might make things pop a little bit too much. Let's now duplicate child number 1. Now, this is where I really should have done this before I went and added in the video. Because now I've got to go through all of my things. I've got to first get rid of the text over there, go and get rid of the video. Let's just have a background color, and I'm going to get rid of the text there as well. It would have been easier if I had done it before I added in the content. I accept that. Let's now duplicate child number 2. Let's just rename that to be child 3. Now, if you remember the layout, we had, I think it was 22 and 22 in terms of height. We're actually going to manipulate this to be a little bit different. So I'm going to reduce this one from 22 to 14. So I've taken away 8, and I'm going to add that 8 to this child container. So we go to 30. So what we get is that. So it's the same height, I mean, it fits the same area, but we get a bit of variation. And then I'm going to do the opposite to what we have here. So I'm going to make this one be 14 and this subchild container be the 30. So you will see on screen in a moment, we've got this well, it fits quite nicely, to be honest, but we get this nice little bento variation. Let's now go and add in some extra content. Into this one down here, I'm going to add in a background image. We'll go for this one over here. I'm going to go for a top center, but I have had a change of mind, and this does happen with me. I'm going to actually increase this to be a 16, and we're now going to take away 2 from there. So we have 28. Let me just do the same over there, 28, and we're going to do just increase that to 16. There we go. That mainly because we couldn't see the hands there, and it bothered me a bit. Anyway, so I've added in my background image. I'm then going to go and add in an overlay. I'm going to pick my color, which is that green. 0.5 works really well. I'm going to take the text, no, not text, this text. I'm going to copy that and paste that over. I'm going to ensure that this container is set to be centered. I'm also going to center align this one as well, because it's just going to have one word in there. So even though I left aligned that, I feel like I could get away with it here. I'm just going to make this say one word. We'll go for London, make it be a white, and I'm going to make it be a whole lot weightier with a bit more letter spacing like that. Now I'm going to copy this entire container, and I'm just going to pop it over here with paste style. And I'm going to take the text as well, and I'm going to paste that over there. And what I'll do is now change my background image. And like what you've noticed throughout this video, I'm going to have a change in mind here. I'm now going to pop this at the bottom, go to my heading, and I'm just going to say lift it off from the bottom by about 20 like that. So far, so good. Into here, we're going to drop in a text editor, change the content. I've changed it to be a 20 just to fit better. Now, underneath here is where I'm going to go and pop in my call to action button, because we haven't got one in here at the moment. So I'm going to make sure I'm on the subchild container. Go and drop in a button. Stylize that to be a different color. I've gone for this like murky orange color. And when you hover, we're going to have a darker color. The text is still white, and I've set the hover animation to be a grow. So when you hover over it, you get a little bit of that interaction. Now let's complete what we're going to do down here. And quite simply, I'm just going to drop in a quote. Let's just drop in a block quote like that. We're going to get rid of the tweet button because I don't always like that. We're going to go for a quotation, which you can just see over there, the symbol. We're going to change the text. Their branding, yeah, absolutely transform beyond. Yep, that's excellent. We're going to get rid of the author name, because I'm going to show you in a later video how we're going to make this more interactive, and that's when I'll tell you more details about who said what. But for now, it's just going to be a quote without the name, okay? We're going to go over to our styling. We're going to set the quote color to be branded color that we have. In fact, no, we won't go with branded. We're going to make it stand out. We'll go for this color there, just so we get that variation in color, because it is very greeny at the moment. I've set the gap between the quote and the text to be 0, and I'm just going to go to my advanced tab, and I am going to get rid of a bit of the gap over there at the top. You know, just above the quote, we add a little bit of space. That is your very basic desktop view that we currently have with our Bento grid. And then, like I said, if you feel like the colors here are a little bit, the contrast isn't great, just go and adjust it. I've gone for EDE, DEE. I'm just going to do it on the background color here as well, just so the white stands out a little bit better. You're giving away quite a bit of information here, you know, and maybe more than you really want to say, but you're getting across quite a bit about what this business might offer for you as a Bento style grid. And of course, go and check how this looks on the mobile. I made some adjustments to the size over here. I reduced it, but as you can see here, things are nicely laid out. We got our call to action button. Now you may feel like you don't want to have these two together, so that's okay. Go over. That's our child number 3, and just go and reverse the columns like that. That's really easy. You don't have to rearrange it here. Just reverse the columns, right? So now we get the quote before we get the brand leader, or you might want to have them in a different position. So when we get over here, we're still back to what we had before. That was a really simple Bento layout, but keep watching because in about 2 videos time, we're going to be adding in a lot more interaction and you are going to love it. Hey, I'm Imran Web Squadron. Take care. I'll see you soon.